Okay, so as I said, the first thing I wanted to ask about was just the crypto advocacy
Mhm.
round you guys did with
Mhm.
Coinbase. And so I guess the first thing is just like how did that come to be? Obviously, partnering with the Coinbase is like a great partnership and got a lot of eyes on it. So I guess you want to talk about how it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So we at Gitcoin are huge fans of Coinbase. Last year, they gave us $1 million to distribute for Ethereum infrastructure rounds. And after that, the bear market really hit in 2022. And so we had been speaking to the giving team about what are ways that we could work together for quite some time that we're like, what could we do something that's impactful where we're not like we need another $1 million at the moment or anything like that. And what came together was how we could potentially do a policymaker education round. That's something that Coinbase is clearly very passionate about doing. And we started thinking about the ways that we could use our grant stack platform to be able to do that. We had done successful advocacy rounds in the past. And so it took us a couple phone calls and figuring things out on, the sides for legal and communications and press and marketing and everything. Coinbase being such a large organization, there's a lot of different green lights that you need to go through to be able to move forward on it. But we thought about what would be like a cool and innovative way to get the community involved, and we thought about, why don't we get Zora involved and let's have people mint NFTs. And Zora committed to donating $1 for each of the mints that we had. And based on some historical data that they had, they were confident we would be able to do 100,000 mints. And so we said, let's call it $100,000 advocacy round. And we started reaching out to the organizations. That part was a little bit easier just because there was 5 organizations that were part of the round, very well established, very well known, had been funded by, Blockchain Association and Point Center orgs that have been funded by Gitcoin a bunch in the past. And so that part was easy, getting them onboarded to the platform, and then figuring out messaging and communication, honestly. And the round was so awesome. Like on socials, it did so well.
Yeah, that's actually perfect because that's what next thing I was going to ask about is like, can you talk about everyone rallying kind of around the mint? Because I feel like that even came before. I definitely want to get into the nouns aspect of it, but
Yeah.
even before nouns, I feel like I had been seeing it a lot going around. So yeah, do you want to talk about like the social, how that kind of all, or how you guys are
Yeah.
feeling at Gitcoin when you see everyone talking about it?
I don't have the data offhand, but I believe that one of our advocacy rounds was actually the largest round we had ever done in terms of matching pool capital and in terms of donations from the community as well. The the whole policymaker education initiative is something that a lot of people within the community support, and I think it became a rallying cry for everyone on crypto Twitter when they've seen the unfair ways that Coinbase has been treated for years and years now. And when they got the wealth notice, and we said, this is an excellent chance, not to like go against anyone, but to us, we were very clear on this is policymaker education. We think that the best way forward, and Coinbase feels the best way forward, is to find the right people to educate the different lawmakers in this, because understandably from the outside they see Suzu, they see Kyle Davies, they see Do Kwon, and like all of this, the Alex Mashinsky, and all of the things that have gone on. They, to them, NFTs don't make sense, and so we're like, wait, like if we do education to really explain to them how this next iteration of technology is what's going to allow the United States to continue to be the center for excellence and a place for a flywheel of innovation, that would work. And I think that crypto Twitter really just got behind the idea of finding a way to support Coinbase by minting NFTs for just gas. Even though gas was a little bit expensive, like it wasn't like there was a really big thing to it. Like, hey guys, this is the a very simple stand with crypto hashtag, and like please add the shield to your display name, which I think I still have up there, and just share that you minted an NFT and have others mint as well. And by doing so, you're actually making efforts to help support policymaker education. And it helped a lot that the Coinbase socials were going at it. Brian Armstrong went out of his way to like tweet about it a ton, and he has a huge following, and the people in his network who are following are also massive. And so all around, it just ended up being a really cool and successful campaign, even before we had Nouns get involved.
Yeah, so on the nouns end, like I guess you see that prop, obviously Gitcoin is
Hmm.
very familiar with like how props go
Yeah.
down, but with nouns in general, like I think when people see public goods funding, they're super interested in it. On the
Hmm.
nouns aspect, that's obviously a huge part of what nouns does. So I guess um, from you guys' perspective, like when you guys within Gitcoin saw the nouns prop, what was your thoughts and getting and seeing nouns getting involved?
We're super excited, man. I mean, Nouns is a really important community, one of the most important communities when it comes to this space as a whole, right? And they're always looking to do interesting things to push the boundaries. They do actually care about public goods. They have the most memeability of any org in this space, I would argue, like pretty easily, or like the top on that. And so, behind the scenes, I had some conversations and we were like, it would make a lot of sense if we could get this, and we would love for Nouns to be involved. And Nouns has supported Gitcoin a ton in the past too. So it wasn't like something that was a new, like a completely new partnership
Right.
by any means. And, obviously putting up a prop doesn't mean that it's going to pass. And so, we were fortunate enough to like figure out, hey, like, where would the funds go? How much should we go for? And then getting it up there and then just really hoping the community would get behind it. We're very fortunate that, like, it's not just certain people within the Nouns community who feel this way, but the Nouns community as a whole is very supportive of funding public goods. And I think they're not, I mean, they're a bunch of very intelligent people who are Nouns holders. And I think even they understand like this initiative in particular is one that just matters a lot. The way that policy gets shaped over the next couple of years with Web3 and crypto is going to shape the next generation of how business is or is not done in the United States when it comes to this industry. And I think the Nouns holders also really at their core understand that, and we're because of that supported.
And if there's anyone like that it affects the most, it's probably organizations like Gitcoin and like Nouns that are kind of operating in this
Yeah.
like there's some gray spaces that they're operating in, right? Like, to some extent
Yeah.
DAOs. There's a lot of just like
Yeah.
unknowns right now, I guess.
So much uncertainty around like DAOs in so many ways. I've been meaning to sit down and understand better what's going on in Wyoming when it comes to DAOs, because I've heard musings of like positive things. But outside of that, like, I, it's tough with how gray the area is.
Yeah. And then I honestly think another thing that kind of helped the round probably was um I think while the round was going on, there's a lot of stuff happening with um, different orgs like moving out of the U.S. or stuff like that going on,
Hmm.
and also some regulation stuff happening. So that probably got
Hmm.
some more chatter. But I guess that kind of leads to my question of like why, especially obviously crypto advocacy has always been super important, but I would say maybe during that time it got people a little bit more motivated. But I guess why do you think crypto advocacy is particularly important right now?
I think as a whole, so like I'm the child of immigrants. My parents both moved here from Pakistan. They grew up in a very developing third world nation where there was no opportunity. They grew up very poor and they moved to the United States and achieved very much like what the American dream is. And, I went to good universities. I live in a good neighborhood. Like my parents, by all means, like achieved the American dream. And so the reason that it's really important is for people like me and my family, which have allowed America to be, the land of opportunity where the best and the brightest come from around the world so that they can create value, capture that value, and then distribute that value. I think it's close to 50% of Fortune 500 companies were started by immigrants or the children of immigrants. And what that's allowed us to do as a country is that you come here, you start a company, whether you're in San Francisco or you start a bottling company, and that ends up leading to a lot of capital creation, and you can hire people, and then those people's kids are better off, and their kids are better off, and that opportunity is what allowed this country to be what it is today, like as great as it is, and that flywheel of innovation for this next generation is going to be through Web3 and crypto in so many ways. And we're seeing the beginning of those things play out. We're seeing Adidas and Nike and Starbucks and all these brands start hopping on, Louis Vuitton, to like starting to see where the value is. It's the next internet revolution, right? And imagine what the United States would be like had we said no to the dot-com boom and didn't have Amazon and didn't have eBay and Facebook and all of the value that was created after the dot-com boom. And so, I think we're in this place where the reason it's so important is because if we want America to continue being what it has historically been for our lifetimes, where, you come and you do this and you achieve these things, and there's, when my parents were deciding to leave Pakistan, there was nowhere else to go that would have offered them remotely the same opportunity. Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, that's all the BRICS countries, like all, like there just wasn't anywhere. And so the reason policymaker education is so important is because we need the policymakers to understand this so that America continues to be the land of greatness. I'm super pro America. I love America to its core, and it's why this matters to me so much, is because I don't want my generation or people like me to be the last people who get to experience what America had to offer in that way.
Yeah. I think, and I part of it, that was a great answer, by the way. I really appreciate it. But I think like part of it goes back to what we were saying earlier about like the uncertainty. Is that I think if you've talked to like many developers, for example, who might have never been involved in crypto before, it's like there's too many uncertainties. So it's like it helps to have this kind of like chatter talk and regulation, I guess, right? And having it all kind of like figured out.
Coinbase held an event at the Russell Senate building right before the round started, or during the time the round was happening, actually, where it was Gitcoin, Polygon, and a handful of other orgs. We went out to the Senate and we spoke to lawmakers and staffers and things like that in just like a really beautiful room where we had like, what are positive use cases for crypto in the form of, policymaker education. And when I was putting it together, one of the examples that I used was 1inch, which is a decentralized exchange, very successful, was originally a Gitcoin grantee, credit Gitcoin a lot for their early successes and being able to survive to get to where they are. They've been in an amazing partner since when it comes to helping fund rounds and graduating from grantee to funder. And, when you go on their site as an American, it gives you an acknowledgement of like technically like you're taking on the risk of using the platform. And from what I understand, they don't hire people in America. And so, this is a company that, is, 9 or 10 figure company in value. And if Americans can't capture any of that value, we can't, use the product, we can't be employed by it because of the regulatory uncertainty that, 1inch doesn't want to have to deal with.
Mhm.
And it's very prohibitive, and it's exactly the kind of thing where we're like, especially as Gitcoin, like, we help distribute funds to projects that are building and creating the value, and we want America to be able to partake in them as we should, right? It's where all the best builders are, and if we continue to do this, they will go to other countries, and other countries are very quickly taking that up. Hong Kong is changing regulations very quickly. The UAE has been very open armed about things. I guarantee Saudi Arabia is doing similar things, And then there's, Portugal has been good about it. Cyprus has been good about it. We're, MICA in Europe passed recently. And so there's, a lot happening that is showing that US policymakers can't stop crypto. They can just stop crypto in the United States. And is that really to the benefit of the citizens of this country?
Yeah. Especially when I think a lot of people in crypto are able to compared to like traditional 9 to 5 people are easily able to just like pick up and go
Easily.
so
Yeah. We're all
definitely yeah
Christian, I don't even know where you're based. I'm in New York, but like,
right yeah I'm in
where is
Florida
Nouns based? You're in Florida? Nice.
yeah so yeah exactly
Like there's no office in Times Square. And
yeah
so we're the most, able to move as needed if we're in the position where we have to. And I'd love for us to be the place that people to continue to come to, hanging out in
no.
Williamsburg.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good way to look at it. the last question I have on the round is just for other nouns, people might be getting involved in, it might be seeing this and not know too much about Gitcoin. I guess what is other ways that other, maybe people who are proposing in nouns or little nouns or whatever, they're in the ecosystem, could maybe get involved in Gitcoin, or what should they know about Gitcoin?
So we're going to be running our next grants round in, don't quote me because we're still figuring out the dates that we put out, but like late July or early to mid August. Within that couple of weeks, we run these grants rounds every quarter. Since we launched this decentralized protocol, the timings have been a little bit different because we're just like working at making sure the tech is right as we launch the next rounds. But we run these rounds quite consistently. Everyone's always able to reach out to me. I'm just AZEEMK underscore on Twitter or AZEEMK on Telegram. Anything that I would be able to help with personally, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. My Telegram's already busy enough, and so a little bit more messages won't do anything to me. And other than that, just check out the Twitter, subscribe to the newsletter. All the information that we have is quite readily available.
And those rounds are pretty similar to like something like, if I understand right, like Prop House, right? Where and then people will, you give out your idea, then people will come and vote on it.
Yeah, so we do quadratic funding to distribute the capital. And so, for the advocacy round, we had said it would be $100,000 before Nouns put the extra 100K in. And people, to be able to get access to that, it works like a crowdfunding campaign that would then get matched with that matching pool money. And so people would come in and donate $1, $5, $10. I think the average donation we have per wallet is like $13. So it's not a lot of money, but that money then gets matched with something from the matching pool, and that gets decided based on number of grantees in a round and like what the donations are. But it's weighted towards grantees getting more votes, gets them more of the matching pool. And so if you get 10 $1 donations, you're going to get more from the matching pool than if you got one $10 donation. And so it's democracy in action where the community gets to decide how capital is allocated. And we've been doing this now since 2019 and distributed over somewhere between 50 and $55 million now. And so, yeah, every quarter. And we'd love for Nouns holders to come in and be part of just, regular donations.
Nice, yeah. I think that gave me a good explanation on quadratic funding because I was going to ask you a little bit about that. But actually, you're talking about the meeting, and I think you said in DC. One of the aspects I think is most interesting is just like that crowdfunding aspect. Like, do you think that crowdfunding aspect that you guys use and others use, I mean, others use different ones, but you guys are probably the most known. Do you think that's kind of like an
Yeah.
under appreciated aspect of crypto that people don't quite recognize sometimes?
Yeah, I definitely do. It's something that like was fascinating to see when we were out in DC and having conversations with people, and their minds were sort of blown because to us, particularly in the United States, I said it's democracy in action. It's like democracy getting to decide how capital is allocated is a really new model, right? Because it's not just basic crowdfunding where you have a $1 donation, you have an outsized impact based on your $1 or $5 donation, which you don't get to have. And so the way that we've done things and to be able to have bottom up decision making on capital allocation is something that as I get in front of more people and get to have conversations about it, they're like, wait, what? We did a great round with UNICEF late last year, and UNICEF is the most well-known NGO in the world, right? And so for us to be in a position where organizations like that are not only inquiring about us, but are actively working with us and are satisfied with the results. We had the UNICEF case study go out 2 weeks ago, maybe. And so, to see that we're an org that can work with UNICEF and like these other large brands, it just goes to show that the more we're able to get our message out there, the better position that we'll be in.
Yeah, and I think like once people see it, understand it, like you said, they definitely are always like, "That's insane." Like, you know.
Absolutely. Every single time they're like, wait, like where, what's the catch? And like, there really isn't one.
Yeah.
You know?
Um, I wanted to ask just a one general question about Gitcoin, and then I want to finish by a question about Passport. 'Cause I know we want to
Sure.
do something about that. So change gears a little bit, but what's something about Gitcoin? Because I feel like I've heard about Gitcoin a lot, but I've never learned as much as I have like since the Nouns prop.
Hmm.
So what's something that people might not know about Gitcoin, but everyone should know?
Gitcoin has created $29 billion in global financial impact based on organizations that were once grantees and have gone on to launch tokens or have private valuations based on fundraising that they have raised. And so public goods is very much so a business, and it is not just a charity. There's a charitable element to it, but the work that's being done at Gitcoin is very much so a business. Open source software in Web 2 is a business worth tens of billions of dollars a year. And if we're able to translate that into Web3, where we want technically as much to be open source as possible, and we're building like the roads, the bridges, and highways of Web3 at the moment, then that means you would do a multiple of tens of billions of dollars, which means that public goods, in a sense, at least in the Web3 sense, is a multi-hundred-billion-dollar a year business. And so paying attention to what's going on in the public good space is something that's super important for anyone who's interested on the business side of things.